Chairman. It's a while since the Duchy updated members on our progress with housing, so we wanted to give just a brief update of what's been happening over the past 12 months or so and share some of the challenges that we continue to face. The headline is it's been a very busy period with refurbishments and relettings. Over the past 12 months, we've relet 8 dwellings, and 5 of those are newly refurbished properties, plus a barn which has been converted from commercial use to residential use. All those tenancies have been granted to either essential workers or long-term island residents, despite only one of the properties having a Section 106 occupancy restriction. That still leaves us with 5 vacant dwellings, and building works are underway on 2 of those properties, and we hope to be able to relet them later in the year. The remaining 3 of those void properties have substantial technical or viability challenges. One has no potable water supply, another is unviable in its current form, and the third is an end-of-life building. We're working on solutions for each of those properties, including looking at whether they can provide more residential accommodation than they currently do. So, for example, the end-of-life building will probably need to be demolished, so we're looking at schemes that could potentially increase housing provision on that site. Inevitably, it makes them significant projects, so they take longer to work up. We've also been targeting our resources towards some of the lower hanging fruit to maximise the number of roofs over people's heads. But from April, we'll be getting an additional building surveyor in the team to help us progress some of these more complex projects. We've also been investigating how additional homes can be delivered on Scilly. The 3 self-build plots at Seaview have all been sold, and I'm sure most of you will be aware that some of those projects are on site. And as I'm sure you've seen, we've submitted a planning application for 10 new homes up at Telegraph, which is the largest Duchy project on Scilly and represents a significant investment in homes for essential need here. And that application will be coming for your consideration to a full council meeting in May. We've also been scoping reuse of the Carn Thomas primary school site on the edge of Hewtown. We've been looking at various schemes for residential conversion, but despite a huge amount of effort and cost, we haven't been able to find a scheme that's viable for residential use by a country mile. So we're now investigating other options for it to contribute to island need, including potentially commercial uses. And some time ago, we installed foundations for a residential development on Briar, and our buildings team are now in the midst of pricing construction for that site, and we're determined to deliver it without further delay. We've also been talking to the Briar community about tweaking the design to make sure it meets need on the island. When I last updated you, we also spoke about some of the challenges in procuring and delivering building works on Scilly. So we've been working on those in parallel to delivering projects. Contractor availability for both island-based and mainland-based contractors is an enduring issue for the Duchy and other housing providers. So over the last 12 months, we've been trying new models and set up new contracts with a mix of island and mainland contractors. We're already seeing some of the fruit of that work, but we've another contract to begin next month, which should help further. But it's still far from a perfect situation and very, very fragile. We also face difficulties meeting regulatory compliance standards required for private residential lets, often linked to the type and location of our property, around things like health and safety, infrastructure, environmental compliance. The delay in implementing EPC legislation has helped, and the infrastructure investment, particularly through South West Water, is really helping. But there's still a long way to go, and some properties remain very challenging and lead to our longer term voids, like the one I mentioned with no potable water supply. We've also been working through some internal staff changes, and we have a new building surveyor in post and a second joining the team in the middle of April, which will help with capacity to progress some of our more complex projects. We have a very small team at Hugh House and always have to deploy our resources to try and get maximum benefit. So it's been a really busy year, but we hope we're getting the ingredients in place to continue to play our part with the housing crisis, particularly with the proposal for 10 new homes up at Telegraph. And Duchy remains very committed to making housing available for essential need while also maintaining our special environment and landscape. But we're under no illusions that we can solve the housing crisis alone. Neither the Duchy nor the Council can. So we're looking forward to supporting you with your housing projects as well. And we also hope the Isles of Scilly community will stand alongside us in helping find homes for essential island need.
Thank you very much indeed, Natalie. And I would just like to inform members, if they're not aware, that unfortunately Natalie is moving on from Scilly at Easter. And I would wish you well from all the members, and thank you very much indeed for your service to the islands. Thank you. We're going into part one now. Item 8 on our agenda is the External Auditor's Annual Report for 22-23, which is in the hands of our 151 officer, Russell Ashman. But I would like to, before he introduces the paper, just thank Paul Dossett and David Bray from our auditors, Grant Thornton, who are on the call, and I'm sure will come in following Russell's introduction. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, Chair. That's coming to members is the External Auditor's Annual Report for the financial year 22-23. First off, just to say that this report concludes all the work that the external auditors do relating to the 22-23 financial year and pulls it all together in one final letter. The main part of this letter, which you will not have seen before, is around the Council's value for money, its financial sustainability, governance and improving economy, efficiency and effectiveness. I would also comment that obviously 22-23 was some time ago now. There is a delay both locally and also nationally in getting the work completed on external audit work. And although this is late for us, we are still in probably one of the few who have got to this position for 22-23 nationally. So let's say, although it feels like it's very late, it is actually quite early compared with the national picture. You'll see that I think that the report sets out here, if you compare the journey that we've been on over the last 5 or 6 years, is a good report. It shows that we're still moving forward on a positive trajectory and we're still improving. You'll see that there are a number of recommendations, 6 improvement recommendations. None of those are a particular surprise and most of them are already in hand. There's also obviously a major recommendation that they have also included, which relates to the children's service following the Ofsted inspection. Again, no surprises there. That you would expect our external auditor to pick up that will be a challenge for the council going forward in terms of delivering its services. So again, no surprises here. A green and a cup and 2 ambers. And on that note, I'll hand over to Paul Dossett and the external audit team for their commentary. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. I'll hand over shortly in terms of the report to David and Chinera, who will go through the report and take you through it. I just wanted to say a couple of things in advance. First of all, Russell's obviously highlighted the key issues, but if we look at the journey for the Isles of Scilly in the last few years, comparing it to, and I know you're a unique type of council, but compare it to other local authorities, it's a very positive journey in terms of finances and a really good trajectory, I think. So I think I'd obviously like to thank all the officers and others who've cooperated with that, and obviously the members who've led that. Secondly, from a personal perspective, this will be my last meeting with the Isles of Scilly. I'm being replaced by a colleague called Barry Morris, who will come on to doubtless onto one of these calls in future. He'll still be working with David on the audit, but I'd like to thank members and officers for their support in my time as the external auditor. And I'll now hand over to David to lead on the report.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Russell did point out, this is the last stage of the 22-23 audit, and we'll be issuing our certificate shortly for this year. There has been a national backlog for a variety of reasons. It's quite a complex story, but we are committed to getting back to more timely reporting. Indeed, Councillor Francis and I have got a call next week to kick off the 23-24 audit. So moving forward, we would aim to be reporting to you in a much more timely manner. As Russell said, this report primarily covers the value for money aspect of our work, and I think all of us will probably have a different definitions to what we understand by value for money and how you would go about auditing that. The National Audit Office have helpfully provided guidance to all auditors to ensure that work is undertaken in a consistent way, and they've identified three key themes regarding value for money, which cover financial sustainability, governance, and improving the 3 E's, so economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. And as you would expect, there is inevitably some overlap between those three areas. As Paul said, nationally, the picture is one of a sea of red with many local authorities experiencing significant challenges. So it's pleasing to see the assessment at the end of this report. But it's worth pointing out, I think, that this report does cover your arrangements in place. So whilst we're satisfied that the arrangements in place are appropriate, it doesn't necessarily mean that, therefore, that members aren't faced with challenging decisions both now and in the future, and that officers aren't faced with difficult tasks either. So this is an assessment of how well we think you're responding to those, rather than an assessment of the challenges that you and other local authorities are facing. As Russell said, there was one key recommendation regarding the Ofsted report, which I think you would expect us to have included within this report, and probably would have questioned us had we not done so. So I won't take you through the report in any more detail than that, but Chinere, who undertook the work, and myself will be pleased to take any questions that members would have, either in terms of this report here, the wider audit process, or our plans going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Councillor Grottek, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Welcome to the audit team, and thank you again for another clear and detailed report and for your recommendations. Members will note the time frame that has been mentioned, and the fact that this will mean that some of the improvements are, as the Chief Executive and 151 Officer has noted, already in progress. It is pleasing to note that the Auditor is confident that the Council's financial sustainability and financial arrangements continue to be satisfactory, with no improvements needed, and value for money is also deemed satisfactory. However, I think members will agree that whilst our governance is noted as having no significant weaknesses, we all welcome the suggested recommendations for improvement. Indeed, comments made by members at our last full council indicate our full support for further focus on our corporate risk register. The Chief Executive is already working in this area, and on the policy review and policy management that is again mentioned within the report. With regard to economy, efficiency and effectiveness, I would like to assure the audit team that members again are fully supportive of all the improvement recommendations. Members are especially mindful of the need to monitor and fully support improvements in our two key areas of children's services and adult social care. We also welcome the focus of the report on our data quality strategy and collaboration work with partners. This is also in hand as our efforts to engage more fully with our community. There is a lot in the report and a lot of detail, and we will keep the report to hand as we continue to address those recommendations. Again, our thanks.
Thank you. I don't see any questions from members. So, Councillor Sims, thank you.
Well, I'd just like to propose the recommendations, really. It's a very clear report, and the reason there aren't many questions is because there's not a huge amount to focus on. So, thank you. Very positive.
Thank you very much. Are you seconding the report, Councillor Grodick?
Yes, indeed. Did Councillor Marcus have his light on or not?
No. Okay, so I have a proposer and seconder for the recommendations to accept the report and the recommendations within it. All those in favour, please. It's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much for your support over the years, Paul, looking after us, and for David and your colleague. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to item 9 on our agenda now, which is the Town Hall, Cultural Centre and Museum, the funding package and award for construction contracts in the hands of Nicola, our Strategic Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. Well, I never thought we'd get here, but we have. So this report brings to your attention the current funding package, and we're proposed to the award of contract to Stepnells as contractors for the project. So first of all, this report sets out the progress we've made on the project in what's called this phase between development and delivery. So we're preparing to deliver. So if you remember, National Lottery and others gave us funding in the development stage, and since November we've been preparing to deliver the project. The key to that is the final funding package, and with both the Levelling Up and National Lottery about to be awarded, it means that we can start to think about awarding the contract now to Stepnells as contractors, having followed the due procurement process. Within the pack, I've also done some indicative project plan, which changes by the day, so we'll do some comms on it when it's fixed. And we've also got an indicative layout for the site compound, which will have some implications for highways and access to properties. So we need some careful comms around that once that's finalised. So within the report, I've set out what we've been doing in terms of the governance of the new organisation that would also be set up to run the new facility. We're in the process and have recruited new trustees already with an ongoing recruitment process into this coming year, and hopefully get some more on island representation there too. We've worked hard on the designs. We're going to have a contract that's a traditional build contract, so it's really important that we ensure we've got a design that's both affordable and deliverable. So Stepnells have been working with us and the architects to make sure those lovely architectural features are actually not going to be an ongoing burden as we move forward. They can be delivered and they are affordable. So there are some minor tweaks to the design as we go along to make sure we come within budget. We've done some work around party wall and the light scaffolding licences. We've done preparations in terms of branding and further comms. And we've also nearly decanted the whole of the town hall. We've got some storage containers now operational at Morwell to hold those artefacts that the museum was storing in the town hall. There's an update in the report around the project costs and the project funding. So the recommendations really relate to noting that progress, being aware that the illustrative programme and site compound is there for illustration purposes at the moment. We'll get some comms out when that's finalised. The second recommendation seeks delegated authority to the Chief Executive, Section 151 officer, to sign any outstanding funding agreements which are from the National Lottery and Levelling Up at this point in time. That we then add the project to the capital programme formally now. And that we proceed to formal contract once that funding is in place. so provided they come in in the tender that's within the funding envelope. I think it's probably worth an additional recommendation really about the whole project costs being contained within the total funding commitment by all the funding partners too, just to make it absolutely clear that it's not just the contractual part of the construction part of the contract that needs to come in on budget, it's the whole project. So there's an additional recommendation, which is that the whole project cost be contained within the total funding committed by all the funding partners. So that's over to you, members, if there's any questions. But it's an exciting time. We're about to go on site. It's quite scary too.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Councillor Dean, please.
Yeah, thanks, Nicola, for the report. It is very exciting, as you say, and it's been a long journey to get here, and, fantastic, and well done for all your hard work and everyone involved. Just welcome to the trustees, the new appointed trustees. That's exciting. And it's all very exciting, it's all very positive. There is just one kind of area that I think is making people nervous, and that's the effect of the works in town and the effect it's going to have on parking and traffic, etc., etc. So I just think it's worth highlighting that and facing the fact that we are going to have disruption, and it is going to be a bit messy, it's going to be a bit noisy, and there will be disruption. But I think what we get at the end of it is something that's fantastic for the island, a fantastic amenity for the community and the visitors alike. So it's the short-term pain for the gain, but overwhelmingly excited and grateful to everyone who's been involved in this project. So I'll propose the recommendations, but I'm sure there'll be some questions before. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Councillor Peacock.
Yeah, on page 5, you've got step 2, you've got your little diagram. I'm assuming that we place either an officer or a member onto the Board of Trustees. Step 2.
So, the council resolution was for the council to step aside. So we will step aside from that new organisation and allow that to stand on its own 2 feet. So the recommendation, going back, I can't remember what month it was that we allow that organisation to stand on its own 2 feet. But the other follow-up recommendation is that we take observer status on those.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, I share Councillor Dean's point, but I'll ask the question that everyone seems to ask me. And does this bring us any closer to getting the old site to a safer, less risk position and a vision for moving that forward?
Yeah, so the position at the moment is, until we're in contract for the new development, the existing lease exists on the old museum building. At some point in the foreseeable future now, we will be asking the Museum Association to surrender that lease and to have faith in this development. So the point at which they're prepared to surrender that lease is for them to decide, but it's at a point where they've got confidence that they will have a new facility, and they can make sure that their obligations as a museum association can be met moving forward. I think we're very close to that point now, so I would hope within the next few months we'll have some news on that for you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, I was going to ask about finance, flags and car parking. So finance, in the report says the council set aside £1 million as our contribution to the project, and we're up to 300. We've spent a certain amount of that, or?
Sorry, if I can clarify. So the commitment in the capital programme is what's set out there. Mm-hmm. So on the page of the funding page, it sets out what the council's future capital contribution will be from the capital programme. So if you remember the original suggestion that the capital contribution will be £1 million, we've reduced that down to £382,123 because we've got a balance of funding from grants at this stage. So that's the capital investment required. Yep. Obviously, we've done a lot of revenue investments so far in getting us to this stage, but that's excluded from the capital build part of this programme.
Okay, so going forward, how much revenue? I'm just worried, obviously, about overspends, about projects being always being more expensive than they say they are. We've done a really good job with the Sea Defence programme, not overspending on that. So can we take assurance that this project is going to be the same?
when I've got the tender prices, I'll know better. But the intention is that we bring this in on budget, and we've made that very clear to all contractors that this has to be brought in on budget. It's a fixed price. So that's why we spend a lot of time with Stepmills at the moment looking at those design features that are going to cost a lot of money to see if there's ways of redesigning those at this stage before they put their final tender price in to make sure we come in on budget.
Okay, cool. Flagpoles. What is the story, the latest about that?
Yeah, so flagpoles, the latest, the discussion that we're having with Stepmills is that the scaffolding design will incorporate the stability that would allow flagpole to be continued to be flown once the existing flagpole is removed. So until it's removed, it will be operational. They'll continue to operate that for us. Once the flagpole comes down because they're doing work to the roof, the scaffold will be erected and there will be a flagpole on the scaffolding itself. In addition to that, the application for a new flagpole on this building has either been submitted or about to be submitted as well. And we've also looking at whether, if there is any period where there is no facility either here or at the town hall, that we use Holgate Green. We've got 3 flagpoles there as well, so we'll be able to provide continuity both in the short and long term.
And that's the same for the rest of the civic responsibility, civic centre kind of stuff. So the address for council at the moment is still town hall. That's going to be changed to here. Okay, and then, like Councillor Dean said about the site plans and stuff, I mean, I don't want to set hairs running, but it looks like Silver Street being closed completely to pedestrians and traffic. Have residents been consulted yet? I think in terms of the works, I see the work timings are going on all year, with only a break in December for Christmas and New Year. How is that progressing?
Okay, so this is the bit where there's going to be some pain. I'm not going to lie to you. This is a big building project and there's going to be noise and disturbance. What are the key points of noise and disturbance? Well, that's going to be really when you're doing the demolition and then when you bring in the main structure in. So there's a lot of metalwork to come in. So what we're talking to the contractor about at the moment is when are those periods of greatest disturbance, so we could do the comms around this is what's happening when. We're doing a pack for residents on the party wall, so they're aware of exactly what's happening when and what those works involve. And then we're doing a wider document, which is about, for the wider community, about what's happening and why and why it has to be at this point in time. And as we explained to those along that party wall, ideally you would not be building in the summer months, but because of the funding constraints by both the Arts Council and the Shared Prosperity Fund, we've got no option but to start works this summer so that we can get their spend out by March 25, or else we lose that funding. So it's not an ideal position to be in, given our dependence on the tourist economy. So we'll have to do some very careful comms once we've got this finalised. So, for instance, the site setup plan that's in the pack, we're in discussions about, isn't that a bit close to those properties that face onto the car park at the moment? Can we realign that? So we're having discussions and having thoughts around how we can best manage the disturbance, but there will be disturbance, there's no way around that. In parallel to the planning permission, we also need the Highways Closures Act. So the Highways Closures will involve the stopping up of the Silver Street at the end of the 1970s extension. And then we form a compound, but the compound will take, if you think about where the car parking spaces are, there's an alignment, a white line. It's that delineates where the compound would be, so it still allow vehicular access through, coming down from the wheelhouse and round towards the park and towards the TIC. So there's been some careful thought about how best to manage it, but there will be disturbance and there will be need for management. And what we've asked is that there's a 24/7 contact number for anybody to contact if there are any particular issues that people need to deal with immediately. But also there'll be a site manager on site at all times for people to come and discuss their issues with. So that community liaison will continue once works start. And Stepmills have assured us that their code of conduct, which they'll run through us as part of the contract, will be a zero tolerance one. There'll be no radios allowed on site, etc., etc. So it's about trying to minimise the disturbance, but with the realisation that big projects cause disruption. So it's the pain in the short term, as Tim describes, to get to something magnificent in the longer term.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand that it's a pain. You just need to, like I say, keep the public involved and keep them informed. Yeah, until we know what the final plan is, there's not much to say, really, is there? So.
Thank you. Councillor Grottek, please.
Thank you, Chair. I absolutely recognise all the good work to date, which we hope will achieve all the outcomes we hope for. And I'm glad that we are recognising the fact that there will be some disturbance to the community, which is regrettable. But as the officer has emphasised, it is really down to some of the funding, especially the Shared Prosperity Fund, which has such a tight time frame that has led us to the position we're in. I would just say, with regard to page 69, paragraph 44, I'm really pleased that we have the additional recommendation regarding funding. I think that could be really useful. And I assume it's probably already been done, and it is really a question for the officers. I assume that with projects like this, we can take out some insurance if at all possible. But I would imagine that some of the insurance premiums might be quite large if we were trying to protect any further claim or contingency events that are mentioned. And lastly, I would say I strongly support the community engagement and hope that this will alleviate some of the concerns. And thank you for a very full and detailed report.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
Yes, I'd echo Tim's thoughts on thanking Nicola for getting this over the line, because I mean, certainly with getting contractors and everything, and I think I was quite pessimistic about it, but well done. I'm glad I was over cautious. The proposed site setup. To the south side of the town hall, it's got it says site hoarding line leaving 1.5 metres for pedestrian path and access. Does that enable pedestrians to walk from Silver Street to Portcrest? Good, that was important. And the other thing,
it follows the curb line round.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing, which is going to have a big impact on me, really, because I think I'll be the biggest vehicle going round there all the time. Will it be possible to modify the area to the west of the park with all the plants and everything in there to widen that out a bit, because that road there is very, very narrow there, where the handrail is to the main entrance to the town hall. If we could move those plants a little bit and give us say 5 or 6 or even 8 feet to widen that bit of road there, it would make life a lot considerably easier. Certainly you could get 2 cars past there. But aside from that, I'd second the proposal unless it's already been done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roger, please.
Yeah, obviously the main areas of concern here are the construction, the noise and levels with regards to the accommodation in this area, which the vast majority is holiday accommodation, not residential accommodation. And I know, and I thank Nicola for the communications I've had with you and Stevie from Stepnells on this already. But I just wanted to urge that we continue open communication, upfront communication, and that we come up with a document that can be distributed to the visitor economy in advance. I think it's much better to be upfront than to hide behind it and hope they don't say anything when they get here. And that hasn't happened yet with regards to the Silver Street properties, I believe, and the vast majority of those are operated by 2 of the main agencies on the island. And I think early communication with them is a must, because I'm not aware that has happened yet.
It went out this week.
Right, okay, thank you. But yes, and continue to have the open lines of communication with the team at the IP and the TIC, because the vast majority of the visitor economy will end up in the TIC with their moans and groans and etc. And I want to ensure the team there are fully briefed with what we're going to say, if you understand what it means, so we're not all talking off piece, that we've got a concise response when those incidents arrive.
That's a good point, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus.
Sorry, last question. The glass recycling, is that going anywhere, or is it just disappearing?
It's going down the Recubite slip, so we're doing the glass recycling there. So we're doing a single drop-off point and allowing it at the waste site as well. But it's in the briefing note. We're just working out the logistics because also there's the clothes from the Salvation Army to move as well.
So is that extra glass at Recubite?
It'll
or is
be
it the
more
existing?
regular pickup.
More
So
regular pickup.
instead of collecting once a week, it'll be twice a week. So it'll be the frequency of pickup will change because demand will be increased.
Yeah.
But it also links in with the waste paper that we're looking at in a minute around curbside collection as well. So moving away from those spring sites
Yeah,
to
but this
curbside
is
collection. In the short term,
2 months
we'll
away.
increase the
That's
frequency of
the one,
pickup.
right? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I have a proposal for the recommendations from Councillor Dean and Councillor Sims. Did you second? Yeah. But I would like to add one more recommendation from the Chair, which was in consultation with our lead member for Finance and our Chief Executive. And that recommendation is that the project costs must be contained within the total funding committed by all the funding partners. This is in order that obviously if there is problematic areas to do with the finance and so on, that the project will cut its cloth to get this done within the envelope of funding that is available to us, and that the council will not be responsible for any overruns. So if you're happy with that extra recommendation, members, would you show your support for all the recommendations? Thank you very much. That's carried, unanimous. And I would like to thank especially lead member Councillor Dean for leading on this project, and for the other members of the project team, and Nicola again for their immense work in this project and to get to this point. We owe them a huge debt of gratitude and wish them well with seeing this project through now. Thank you very much indeed. Item 10 on our agenda is our commercial waste service review and commercial waste fees and charges, which is in the hands of Rebecca. Before we take this item, I would like to remind members that the appendix to this is a Part 3 item, and as you know, we will continue into Part 3 after this has been taken. So please do not stray into Part 3 areas around this item at this time of the meeting. Thank you very much. And Rebecca, thank you.
Thank you. Morning, members. So the purpose of this report is to present to you the findings of the Commercial Waste Service Review and to recommend a series of changes of improvements to the service. So in summer last year, Eunomia Consulting were appointed to undertake a strategic review of the Council's commercial waste service, to review the commercial collection offer and processes, review the collection charges, ensure that the Council operates compliantly, reduce the budgetary pressures, and ensure that waste management services can be sustainably managed. The report examined the financial and recycling performance of the waste service in its current form and presented the results and options, assessment examining possible changes. The report identified a number of issues, namely due to the Council's unique challenges in operating logistics in serving remote island communities. Challenges include non-compliance amongst businesses, enforcement challenges, high costs associated with the waste disposal and haulage contracts, control on the off-islands, staffing and administration. Eunomia created a baseline to reflect service performance based on commercial waste presented in commercial sacks, and concluded that the service currently makes a loss of over £21,000 a year on waste collected, which is primarily driven by the high disposal costs associated with the waste disposal and haulage contracts, and that these costs aren't fully passed on to customers. An enhanced baseline was also modelled to account for all commercial waste presented in both commercial and household waste, which shows far greater losses for the Council. The deficit costs are not being recovered from those using the service and instead is being subsidised by the Council. The report also identified higher costs operating services on the off-islands compared to St Mary's and the low take-up of recycling by businesses. It's essential the Council provides the most efficient and cost-effective services to our customers, and this requires service improvements to drive down the cost of waste management and seek improvements to deliver value for money from waste disposal contracts. However, it's still necessary to improve income collection to ensure costs are recovered from service users. There are a number of options to address service issues that are presented for members in the report, and it's recommended in recommendation 2 that members approve use of £25,000 in general reserves for consultancy support in developing a commercial waste service, subscription service. A further report on that will be brought to members before the 31st of March next year. With regards to waste fees and charges, they're included in this report for 24-25. In light of the commercial waste service review, which highlights the deficit experienced in the service, it's appropriate to increase some commercial waste fees and charges above the rate of inflation. The increase is considered proportionate considering the immediate pressure on the service. The proposed fees don't cover the entire cost of providing the service for businesses. The ambition is to achieve full cost recovery in the medium term once service investments have been undertaken and the waste disposal contract renegotiated. Further increases may be required, but these can be ascertained once we've reduced costs to the optimum level. And this brings me on to recommendation 3 of the report, which is for members to approve the waste fees and charges for 24-25 as set out in Appendix A. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rebecca. Councillor Legg, please.
Thank you, Rebecca, for the report. It's a very detailed report and clearly sets out why we need to do this and how far we've got to go. Obviously, it's going to be quite a significant change for some businesses, but this moves us in line with what we should be doing, what is right and what is fair. And I think the moving our charges up whilst simultaneously working on bringing the costs down to find the points in the middle where they meet is the right approach.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock, please.
Just referring to page 6 of the report, which is on page 84 of the agenda pack. I'm personally disappointed that 3/4 of island businesses do not pay for their commercial waste, according to what's in the report. And I would urge the officer to reach out to Islands Partnership and other stakeholders to ensure that other businesses are aware of their liabilities. I think that's a massive figure, Robert. If it was 25%, you'd expect that, but over 3/4 of businesses on island not even paying in or paying their way, I think it is too high for the islands. And it's not sustainable for the council paying it.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
I was going to mention paragraph 20, which John just alluded to, 3/4 of businesses. Just for clarification, on paragraph 23, the report concluded that the service currently makes a loss of over 21,000. I assume that is the difference between what we get back as recyclates and what it costs. Okay, because I'm just going to make sure that 23 and 25 are connected. The managing commercial waste in 25 costs the council 212,000 a year, more than it generates, which is a huge amount of money. And I thought this for a number of years. I basically think, obviously not tomorrow, but phase it in over a couple of years. Council just shouldn't be picking up commercial waste like virtually every other council in the country. We're not really resourced for it, and people might complain about it, but just to hark back again, that's actually 10 years ago now, maybe less than that, 8 years ago, the council used to take builders' waste at the tip. The council just said no, and nothing happened. People just didn't take it down there anymore. There was no fuss about it whatsoever. Now, I'm not suggesting a cut-off like that with commercial waste, but I do think if the council moved out of picking up commercial waste, this problem would go away. We're not obliged to. People would make their own arrangements.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grottick, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to commend Rebecca and all the team for the efforts to engage with the community. I think we're trying very hard and we must continue to do that. I think the problems on the off-islands need the continued focus, because obviously it's an area that they would be very concerned about. And Councillor Peacock has actually covered the ground that I would yet again emphasise the need to ensure all commercial waste is paid for, which includes holiday lets and Airbnbs, as noted in the report, even if paying council tax. And I agree, it's a very disappointing statistic. So hopefully we continue to educate and encourage, and if necessary, enforce the fact that if you should pay, you must pay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, can I just have some clarity over paragraphs 23 and 25? 23 says the service is making a loss of £21,000 a year. Yeah. 25 says it costs the council 212 grand to run the commercial waste, more than it generates. So, sorry, can you just clarify those numbers?
Yeah, so I think the 21 is on commercial waste. That's presented in commercial waste stacks. That's just showing that we're not making the cost recovery on the current stacks that we sell, basically. But the additional losses are to account for all the commercial waste which is being put in the household waste stream, which should be being recovered. So, yeah, they're losses which we should be receiving as income.
Okay, so the headline figure is because 75% of businesses, we estimate 75% of businesses aren't using commercial waste.
Yeah.
It's cost the council, taxpayers are subsidising business to the extent of £200,000 a year for their waste.
Yeah.
Not the 20 grand. It's a magnitude higher than that. It's 200 grand of council taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Is going to businesses rather than to services. Okay. Just wanted to get that, clarify that rather than, which is not great. And obviously there'll be implications for higher charges for businesses. It's going to make life more expensive for them, and it will, that cost will get passed on to consumers. So, which is not brilliant because everything's more expensive anyway. So, I don't know how the council and the island partnerships and businesses in general are going to work together to minimise that cost.
Thank you. Councillor Roger.
It's not necessarily a cost if you can get the 75% of the businesses actually paying. You can hopefully keep the costs where they are or even bring them down. The costs keep going up because of the 75% of the businesses that don't pay. So I think the key is to get the 75% of the businesses to pay and see what the income in there is, and hopefully keep costs as they are, if not further down. And yes, we have communicated this for years now, I think, to the business community, and it's ignored. So I think we've gone past the opportunity of engaging and encouraging, and we should go straight to enforcement and not do anything else but that and concentrate on enforcement. There's far too many. You see it every day, vans coming into the high street, loading up with commercial waste and disappearing off into the countryside to be burnt or whatever. And I would think some enforcement could be a quick fix for quite a lot of what goes on, because no one's hiding it. It's quite visible and obvious when it does.
Thank you. Chancellor?
I was going to pick up on the enforcement and ask Rebecca what the actual enforcement powers we actually have are, as a clarification point.
And we need to check those, but obviously in terms of collecting it, people should be paying for that service. It isn't a free service, so it should be paid for. And ultimately, if people aren't going to pay, then the council can stop collections. But we don't want to go too far there, because that would create potentially waste building up in town, particularly. So we have to work with businesses on this. And there is a lot of behavioural changes, that whole carrot and not the stick approach, which we're trying to do. But yes, we need to work more with businesses, and we're proposing to do that this summer by running some drop-in sessions, potentially meeting perhaps with the Islands Partnership and those businesses that manage large holiday lets here, those bigger companies, to try and work with them so that they understand a little bit more about the situation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, my question may have been answered. I was just going to sort of reflect on the fact last meeting we spoke at length about the airport finances, and the figures at the airport aren't massively dissimilar to what we're talking about here, which are clearly totally unsustainable for a small council like ourselves. So I was going to explore what we can be doing as a council in the next 6 months to find some quick wins and drive this down. But if we are going to go down the enforcement route, do we have the budget? Are we giving the officers the tools to deliver this, I think? Are we setting a realistic budget and realistic parameters for them to go to some of these 76 businesses that are causing us this pain? So I just think we as members just need to take some responsibility to make sure that we are giving all the tools, all the resources which are required, learning from other places, because 76 businesses not paying their rates or paying their fair share is hitting. So it's just what we can do in the next 6 months to, within what we've got, to make a significant impact into this, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Nicola Stinson, our Director, is going to come back on this. Thank you.
So we haven't got any resources in terms of enforcement, but what the team's approach would be, as set out in the report at the moment for the next year, is to do that engagement and understand the barriers better. So why aren't people paying? Is it the cost? Is it that the service isn't on the right days? And what could we do in terms of driving down that cost in terms of our contracts with the haulers as well? So I think it's a bigger picture. It's not just one thing here. There's a range of things we need to do over the coming year to get into a better position for this time next year. I don't think there's a magic wand. I don't think we could just say, let's get an enforcement officer in, we'll solve it tomorrow. Because I think all the barriers will be different. So we need to understand and have those conversations, and that's what the team's intention is over the next 12 months, is to have that understanding, I think, shared understanding of what the council's position is, the community's position, and the business's position. So I think it's a phased approach. But, you know, if we had the money for an enforcement officer, that would be great. But I don't think that would solve it on its own. And I think we have to be realistic about the council's budget and how we use resources. So let's understand the barriers first and bring a paper back to you about how we think we might best tackle it. But I hear what you're saying. We just need to make sure we've got the evidence to say that that's the right approach as well. But yeah, certainly there's 12 months' work here. This isn't a magic wand.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a small business and we do buy our sacks. And over the past 3 years, I would say that the sacks have almost doubled in price because of other businesses not paying. What is the ruling on people who have someone to take their rubbish, their cardboard away and burn it?
Thank you.
I think what we need to do is pick up on these through environmental health, because I think that's where the breach will come. So I think if we can get some of that evidence, we can start looking at other teams' powers to help solve some of those problems as well. But I know environmental health have visited a number of sites over the last few years where burning has taken place. From reports from the public when that's happened. So I think I would encourage people to report in through environmental health, and we can use their enforcement powers at this stage to follow up those incidents.
Yes, I was just wondering what the procedure was. You have to gather your evidence really through the public. You can't just arrive somewhere and and see what you can do. It is a problem for small businesses because, especially ours, because we're not a big profit-making business, and it's another thing. We get rid of as much as we can for people who can come and collect their newspapers and things like that. We used to have a farmer that took a lot, but I think they've still got a bundle left from about 2 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just want to say thank you for bringing this paper as well, because after the fees and charges from last year, it's good last month, get it right. It's good to have the rationale behind those fees and charges, and it's good to see that. Just I wanted to clear up in terms of the options for going forward. Recommendation 2. Are we deciding on these options now, or are we expecting a report back with outlines on those options?
Recommendation 2 of the report is to approve option 2 of the report. To work on developing a subscription service, and then a report on that will be brought back to full council before.
Okay. So that's we can have a chat about equity and charges when we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
Yeah, I just wanted, a number of members have mentioned enforcement. I'm not quite sure how you could enforce this, really. I would have thought the most effective way is just not to pick it up if people are in breach. But I mean, I don't actually, it's not like shoplifting, though it is in a way, but you can actually take people to court because of this. So I'm not sure enforcement's even a way forward on it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dean, please.
On a more positive note, I'd thank you very much for the report, and I think we're definitely heading in the right direction. I think the subscription service kind of sorts this problem out. If people aren't paying for SACs at the moment, once we start saying you have to pay a subscription service to get your commercial waste picked up, it just won't get picked up if you don't subscribe. So that kind of sorts that out. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank Rebecca and the team for how far we've come in the last 5-10 years. I mean, I say this every time, but I mean, you look at the pictures of what used to be down at Morwell and the absolute kind of carbuncle that was down there and where we are now. And yes, the figures on here are terrifying. 76% of businesses not paying, and £212,000 deficit is bad. But I think well done for finding a solution, and let's get on with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Legg, please.
Obviously, the 76% not paying is sort of a scary figure, and you kind of look at it and think, well, how can this be? A lot of businesses believe that by paying council tax on their properties, they are paying for their waste, and ultimately, the council has historically been hasn't dispelled that myth because of various misunderstandings, but it is now clear that any waste produced from commercial activities is business waste and should be paid for separately to council taxes. So it's us suddenly realising and recalibrating, and now that 76% are on the other side of the line. And really it's a comms issue to inform people that they need to change what they do to get back on the right side of that line. And with that, I propose the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Legg. Do I have a seconder, please, for the recommendation? Councillor Dean. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you from the Chair, Rebecca, for all your work on this and for the report. Thank you. We move over now to item 11 on our agenda, which is the Isles of Scilly Resilient Island Strategy. And this is going to be introduced by Nicola. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen sends his apologies. He's at a doctor's appointment. He's hoping to get here, but obviously has not arrived. So I'll just briefly go through the paper. I think really the first step is to approve the Resilient Island Strategy, which was one that went to public consultation. Members approved that going to consultation last year. We had feedback on it. It's been updated and it's in your pack as Appendix A. So that's sort of the strategy, the where we are at now, the facts, the risks, etc. I think more importantly probably is the recommendation 2, which is about the development of the action plan, because I think with the predicted sea level rises and weather changes, we need to adapt, and we need to focus on what those local adaptations are going to be, both by individuals and by businesses and then by organisations. So what are the physical adaptations and behavioural changes that we will need to make as a community? And I think that's the key recommendation here in this report, is around what do we do next. We know where we are, we've been given the facts and the figures, we've been given the strategy, we've got some ideas within that strategy about what could be done, and we'll be looking for funding for some of those things. But a lot of it's going to be about developing the action plan with funding to make sure we can make the changes required to protect these islands moving forward. So it's really about what can I do as an individual, what can we do as a community, and how we're going to fund that. So there's quite a lot of work gone into this so far, but I think there's a significant additional amount of work to do in terms of making those actions real and deliverable, and that's the challenge ahead of us for this coming year. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Legg, please.
As the director says, we've seen this before. This isn't new. It's been out for consultation. It's come back. We've made changes. Let's publish it and let's move forward with it and start having this discussion, which isn't a discussion for today. It's a discussion that will be ongoing and happen over many years, let alone one meeting and one agenda item. So I will propose the recommendation and open the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Watt, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The RSK report is extremely detailed, and congratulate him on doing the amount of detail in this. I think also, in addition to that, the implementation plan is even better and a lot easier to read, incidentally, because it's a lot shorter and more to the point. One aspect on the report from Stephen Swaby, paragraph 13, about the incidence of fog on the Isles of Scilly, about 10% of observations now. I can endorse that. I prepay my newspaper, and it's a bit nerdish, but I keep a log of every time the newspapers don't arrive. 51 times in 2023. Because of not necessarily always fog, sometimes it's bad weather such as high winds and so on. In 1988, I managed to get hold of a 50-year data list from the Met Office, and at that time, over that 50 years, the average amount of fog we had a year was 13 days over 50 years. Well, last year, as I said just now, it was 51. And so far this year, it's 22, and we're not even at the end of March. So I think we're on line for breaking the record this year. But going back to the original point, I do think RSK have done an excellent report in pulling this all together. One thing I probably missed off when I wrote the foreword, or part of it, to the action plan, the climate change action plan, I did say that the council couldn't do this on our own. What I perhaps should have said in there was there's a shared responsibility with the community. And so with that, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wharton, for your very interesting statistics. Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
Yes, thank you for that, Steve. I would have thought it would have been more than that this year. It certainly feels like that. But yeah, 20 days is about half of it, isn't it? It's a very good report, as everybody else has said. Really informative, and I would happily accept the recommendations. I think on page 100, paragraph 6, the predicted sea level changes. I think that perhaps should be bold and in red, or perhaps in blood, because I'm sure we will not get a 5 metre rise by 2150, however it's possible. But one thing I did notice is it's accelerating. I mean, the actual rate of change is quicker. You've got 3 metres in 50 years and 2 metres in 70 years just before it. So it's obviously our responsibility to do something about it then, because if it's a 5 metre rise, then basically nobody's going to live here. I suppose they could be telegraphed, essentially. But Tim would be all right. You just have to get some wellies. So, it's... I think that ramming those facts in paragraph 6 home would be quite a useful thing to do, because, like I said, a 5 metre rise is vast.
Thank you very much.
Well, I don't think much of the UK left either.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the point that Steve was making, really, and make sure that we, as a community, really get behind the report. I welcome the report, as everybody else has done, but I think, picking up on Steve's point, 30 centimetres increase in the height, we might be sitting underwater in the very building we're in 2040. Certainly by 2100, if we're, but again, we won't be here then. Well, some of us may. I don't want to make any comments, but I wouldn't expect to be here in 2100. However, it will definitely be underwater if these figures are correct. So we need to really focus that, I think, put that out to the community to make sure the community are aware. Because, this has major implications all over the islands. And I think that should almost be our headline.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I was just wondering where we are now with capacity. I'm aware a member of staff left last week. But there's obviously a huge amount of work which we've sort of alluded to in the last few minutes. Are we, as a council, are we just going to absorb it into the existing staff, or have we got a vision for, just wondered where that now sits?
So in the budget papers that went through in February, you'll have seen there's a flood risk officer post that's been created. So that post we're in discussion with the Environment Agency about now, because we're wondering whether we can do a joint post with them and then fund something at a more senior level. So we're in discussions with the Environment Agency about whether we can do a joint funded post that would focus primarily on flood risk and adaptation. But we have put money in the budget this year to fund part of that post at least. So we'd hope to recruit at some point in the not too distant future.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Legg and Councillor Watt, because I know they've put a tremendous amount of effort into this on everyone's behalf, so thank you for that. Slightly wider issue, I just hope that we can examine all the climate change work that Cornwall Council are doing, because it does seem to me that although it's no doubt really laudable, there are occasions where the different teams of Cornwall Council seem to be overlapping. And in October, for example, we had 3 workshops from 3 separate climate change teams of Cornwall Council. Now, I'd just like to understand a bit more. It may be that I'm not fully informed and they're all doing entirely different things, but I'd just like to make sure that we understand some of the strands, so that when we work with the officers, as we do quite closely with Cornwall Council, we don't have too much pressure put on our small teams, because all of the differing teams are all liaising with our teams. Perhaps I'm being oversensitive and could have some reassurance on that one.
I think it's important that we work with our colleagues on the mainland, and we use that as an additional resource. So I think Rebecca's very much engaged with those subgroups that Cornwall have set up. They have a bigger team there and some expertise that we can draw upon, and I think it would be unwise of us not to do that. So we do use that peer group as an important resource to assist us in the work we do here. So we will continue to work with our colleagues in Cornwall and see where they can assist us, where they don't charge a fee.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser, please.
Yeah, just coming back to the fog and then leading on to something within the report. I travelled back on the Gry last Friday, and the crew on there said it was the highest number of passengers they've ever carried this winter because of disruption with fog. Which leads me on to another thing. I think, looking through the report, it's great. It's obviously tremendous detail, a lot of effort gone into it. If you start looking at some of the pathways for mitigation and things like that, we really mustn't underestimate the amount of work that there is still to go there. If you take one of them, carrying on with fog, it talks about disruption to air travel. And their mitigation, or one of the suggestions there, is to put radar and assisted landing and stuff like that. There's obviously a huge cost there, and we're already struggling to make ends meet at the airport. That might not be the answer. Other ones, not encouraging, preventing controlled burns to prevent wildfires. Well, that possibly is the other way around. Maybe it's better to have a controlled burn rather than a wildfire. So there's a lot of assessment on the actions. I'm not saying now what's right or wrong. That's a huge task. So there's got to be a tremendous amount of work in actually planning this as we move into the action and the implementation.
Thank you. Councillor Legg, please.
Just to come back on Councillor Grottick's sort of question about the consultations that Cornwall Council carried out last year. I certainly know that 2 consultations that were happening at a similar sort of time. One was on nature recovery, and the other was on the local area energy plan. And whilst they both come out under the sort of environmental and climate change umbrella, they're very different ends of the spectrum, and very different teams that were involved with it. So whilst they happened at the same time, they were almost completely unrelated. And it was a period of a lot of consultations happening. I think we had 2 consultations running at the same time, and I think the community were perhaps a bit board of consultations at that point. So yes, it wasn't very well organised, but in terms of the teams that came over to Scilly, they were very separate teams working on very separate sort of subjects.
Thank you very much. I have a proposer and a seconder for the adoption of these recommendations. All those in favour, please. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And I would like to endorse the Vice Chairman's comments about her thanks to Councillor Legg and Councillor Watt for all the work that they've been doing on this. It's very much appreciated by this council. Thank you. We move on now to item 15 on our agenda, which was under part 3, but we are going to take now in part 1. So I'd like to hand over to Tina, our head of HR, for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Following the resignation of the Strategic Director for People and Communities last year, an interim structure was put in place with the heads of service for children's and adults acting up to cover the Director of Adult Social Services and Director of Children's Services statutory roles. After an unsuccessful recruitment campaign last summer, resulting in no appointable candidates for the twin-hatted Strategic Director role, a recommendation was made for the appointments panel to reconvene to discuss next steps for the post with regards to the recruitment. External advice from the LGA, external recruitment consultants and partners has also been sought to inform discussions and recommendations. This report seeks to determine what the next steps are regarding the Strategic Director post. General consensus was reached by the previous appointments panel that the existing structure is no longer fit for purpose with the existing Strategic Director for People and Communities post. And the panel were comfortable bringing a recommendation to full council creating 2 new chief officer level posts, in essence splitting the roles of the Director for Children's Services and Director of Adult Social Services. The appointments panel were also supportive in principle of a full review of children's and adult services structures to follow within a 12 to 18 month period, with the review commencing in 12 months and final solution in place by 18 months. Today, there are a number of recommendations contained in the report, and members are asked to review and agree the following. So, agreeing the creation of 2 new posts within the council structure, the Director for Children's Services and the Director for Adult Social Services. Agreeing the contract type, so recommendation is a fixed term contract for 12 to 18 months, with a salary banding of 71 to 75,000. The formation of a new appointments panel for these 2 posts under Standing Order 39.10, and the recruitment and agreeing the recruitment process. So the recommendation from officers is an internal and external recruitment process, but primarily to avoid the Easter holidays. However, that would not be engaging external recruitment consultants due to the high cost associated with this. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Before I take any questions from members, I would like to remind members that although we brought this into part 1, we should not be discussing any personal details regarding these appointments. So please bear that in mind when you are asking questions. Other concerns that you have that are of a more personal nature to any applicants or whatever for these posts can be dealt with by the appointments panel and can be made in due course. So with that, Councillor Mumford, you were first. Thank you.
Yes, I would just like to say that I would agree with all the recommendations here. So, sorry, I had something to say, but I can't say it now. I'm very disappointed this is not in a part 3. I'd like to say that I agree with the 3 elected members, with the chairman and 2 others. I would like to propose that the other 2 people would be the lead member for children and the lead member for adults. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take that in a moment, Councillor Mumford. Thank you. Councillor Williams, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Before going on to my comments, I just wanted to use this opportunity to remind members we've got corporate parenting training scheduled for after this. I don't know if FOG is going to have impacted upon that. Justine, I'm sure, can update when she comes back, but I just wanted to get that in before you all rush off and do other things at the end of this meeting. So, again, like Avril, I was part of the group that's had many conversations, discussions, meetings about this particular topic, and I believe we found a pragmatic approach in the recommendations before you this morning. For me, I think what we're proposing reduces the agency costs, which are large by any stretch of our imagination. They maintain some consistency in the work we're doing, although there's a risk that might not be the case. But let's just remember we've got the Ofsted inspection ongoing, or the Ofsted recommendations and action plan ongoing. We've got CQC lurking to do a similar inspection of adults at some point. We've got the Park House project ongoing and a whole host of work around children's services to do with post-16 childcare, those sorts of aspects which don't necessarily fit into the inspection report but are still onerous. I agree with our approach to splitting the roles. The twin hat role where one individual is director for children and director for adults was very fashionable, quite popular 15 or so years ago. If you look at the statistic, that number is now reduced dramatically, partly because of the sort of burden and risk that those individuals hold. And we've also got to bear in mind as well, what we're paying is not a particularly attractive salary to someone to take on some of those risks. A child in care in Manchester is getting the same sort of legislative approach as a child in care on Scilly. So we're sort of pitching this at a sort of an assistant director salary level, but wanting someone who can do a whole gambit of resources. So I think we shouldn't be naive to that. I think it allows us to be transparent as well, rather than just allocating jobs. We are doing a short recruitment process, and it also allows us to move quickly. And as I talk in more detail at some point in the future about Ofsted monitoring visits, we'll talk about pace. It's something we haven't cracked yet, so I think we've just got to be mindful of that. So I think there's a risk of doing this, but there's a risk of not doing this, and I think the risk of doing this allows us 18 months to review our structure, just to work things forward. So I support the recommendations which are before us as well.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock, please.
Yeah, just a couple of points. The first point is picking up on what Councillor Mumford was talking about, the appointments panel. I always wonder if it's worthwhile the same councillors who were on the appointments panel last time being on the appointments panel again this time, just for continuity, would be my first point. And my second point is I raised at scrutiny some time ago about personal development plans of staff, and I see that's one of the recommendations to the summary, and I just want to make sure that is a robust method that's carried out. And I also want to ensure that is linked to strong appraisal, so that we don't end up with a scenario where we have a weak candidate. I don't think the candidates are weak. I don't want to talk about personalities at all, as per your request, but I just want to make sure that we can bottom out via appraisal the actual total, just that section of personal development. So we make sure that the members of staff who we are putting up to this higher level are totally and properly looked after by this authority.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Mumford's suggestion that preference at this. I think this should have been in part 3. Would have made it a lot easier. And I also agree with Councillor Peacock's suggestion that the previous 5-member panel should continue, and I would propose that we continue with that rather than a 3-member panel. But aside from that, because of it being a part 1 paper, I haven't got a great deal to say.
Thank you, Councillor Sims. Councillor Dean, please.
I don't have a problem kind of operationally for this as far as the children's services and adult social care goes. What concerns me is the high level resilience we've got in the council. So where we used to have 2 strategic directors, a chief executive, a section 151 officer and a monitoring officer, now we've got a chief executive who is also the section 151 officer, which we agreed to do for a period of time. But 1 strategic director and a monitoring officer, and that's it at the top level. And that concerns me a bit that we don't have the resilience up there. But as far as kind of operationally and proceed, this solution, I've got no problem with this solution. My concern is that we're a bit light at the top. But I think Russell might come back with the light.
Yes, thank you, Russell.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that. This, in my view, the way that we are going about this will strengthen the level of management, because instead of having 1 strategic director, we're going to have 2 directors. They will be slightly more junior, but they will be sitting at the most senior level of the organisation, reporting direct to me. So my view is that the senior management is actually expanding. I think having it in 1 joint strategic director, calling it strategic, means that we had quite a narrow management structure. This actually puts more resource in by having 2 in there, and they will be treated the same as the strategic director.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roger, please.
Yeah, just picking up a recommendation 5, which is asking us to make a decision between A or B. B, I think somewhere else in the document, it mentions external advertising but limited. Just as we're creating 2 new roles here and haven't advertised these before in this process, I just wanted to check that limited wasn't too limited and that we were casting the net far and wide through our communication channels, but not obviously taking on a recruitment consultant.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So it would be proposed that, as opposed to engaging external recruitment consultants who, it might be sort of 40,000, 50,000 for that, we would be seeking to use our existing networks with the local government associations, South West councils, all the usual social media channels, obviously the council's website. So promoting it through those channels as opposed to engaging external recruitment consultants, which would also add additional length and time to that process. So.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would support option B with both an internal and external advert. And we have got Easter coming up, so I don't know how that will impact. But obviously I would like to feel that, we gave enough time for what I hope will be a very interesting role to be properly communicated in the appropriate areas. And I would say that I would support, and I'd better declare an interest because I was part of the original appointments panel, that people do have to be away. Councillor Bedford is not with us today and she was a member of the original panel, that it does give you the flexibility of having enough people there to discuss and input should 1 or even 2 members have to be away for whatever reason.
Thank you. Councillor Legg, please.
Stop me if it does. This would be a part 3 thing, but I don't think it is because it's talking about national salaries. recommendation 3 talks about the national salary benchmark for having 2 directors, 1 for each role. If we had 1 director, do you know what the national salary benchmark for that would be?
I think it was in the region of 160 to 170k for a twin hatter, and also in terms of the availability of appointable at this stage of our improvement journey, the confidence was limited from the external recruiters.
So splitting it and having 2, we'd get 2 people for less than the price of 1. So, I mean, from my point of view, having 2 people and paying less, that they're specialised in their particular roles, that seems like a much better way to approach it. Thank you. Chief Executive, please.
Yeah, just like to come in. I think the councillor got quite close to what I was going to say. The very last part is the idea here is, although it may produce a small financial saving about what you'd get if you went for national, the idea here is to get 2 people who can be specialists in those areas we're talking about, have that focus. It's one of the things we've learned from the Ofsted thing, is to have somebody really focused who understands children. And I think what this council requires, in my view, is that we need directors there who are not only a director who can manage, but they also have to be close enough to the operational side, so they still understand it. Sometimes a strategic director you would get maybe on a national basis would be somebody who's probably 25 years ago from being a operational person or an operational social worker. What we'd be expecting is that both of these posts would be done by qualified social workers, and there would be an element of they would still be professionally hands-on to a certain extent. Okay, that's the idea, is that they are not a 100% strategic manager sat there just dreaming up strategic ideas. They actually understand how the service is delivered. They are functional as well as being strategic.
Thank you very much, Russell. Councillor Mumford, please.
Yes, I'm sorry, I only did the first 4 recommendations. Recommendation 5. Personally, I wouldn't consider going out for an advert until, if recommendation 2 was to go through, I would not consider going out for any adverts until we'd had a review after 12 months. So I wouldn't be voting for that. But I'll vote on 6. Can we please take these recommendations separately, Chairman?
We certainly can,
Thank you.
Councillor Mumford. First of all, though, Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, if we're going to take them separately, that's fine. I'm just comfortable with the recommendations as they are.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
I don't know if Councillor, I did propose that the panel stays at 5. And Councillor Grottick, it's not been seconded, but you seem to think that, be inclined to go with that. I just wanted to see if somebody would second that proposal before we go down the road any further.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I was going to take the request of Councillor Mumford that we consider having the 2 other members of that panel being the lead member for children and the lead member for adults. That's been proposed by Councillor Mumford. Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Guy. All those in favour, please? That's carried. Thank you very much. So with that, I will move on to take the recommendations individually. First of all, recommendation 1. Do I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Mumford, seconder. Councillor Peacock, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Recommendation 2, proposer, please. Councillor Marcus, seconder. Councillor Mumford, all those in favour? That's carried as well. Thank you. Item 3 of the recommendations, proposer, please. Councillor Mumford, seconder, Councillor Sims. All those in favour? That's carried as well. Recommendation 4, proposer please, Councillor Sims, seconder, Councillor Mumford. All those in favour? Carried as well. Recommendation 5. We need to make a decision on A or B. All those in favour of B? Could I have a proposer for item B? Councillor Mumford, Councillor Marcus, seconded Councillor Williams. All those in favour of B? Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. So presumably we don't need to deal with item A. And the last recommendation, item 6 of our recommendations. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Mumford, seconded Councillor Williams. All those in favour? That's carried as well. Thank you very much. And I do apologise to those members who wanted this in part 3, but I was informed by our Chief Executive that this needs to be a part 1 item. So apologies for that. Councillor Sims.
Recommendation 4, you said I proposed it, I didn't. I proposed we had the existing panel of 5, we continue with the existing panel of 5, but that you took it as I proposed the 3 member, which I didn't.
Sorry, I thought you were putting your hand up.
No, so we had a vote previously, just before you amended it. We had a proposal from me that we have just 3 members there, and that vote got passed.
Okay, well, anyway, I didn't propose that one in particular. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much, Tina, for the paper. Part 2 items are for information only. We now move into part 3, so I need a vote, please, that under section 100A 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of that Act as amended, being information about the business affairs of particular persons. Could I have a proposer, please, for that? Councillor Grottick, seconded Councillor Marcus.
Just Chairman, the stream's still going on, so we just need to stop there.
Recommendation first. Yeah, so I have a proposal and second. All those in favour, we go into part 3, please. Thank you.